You truly believe in networking, don't you?
Absolutely. I can comfortably say networking changed my life. A lot of doors opened to me through networking. I think I met you through networking as well. We have done history. We hosted the first ever talent acquisition conference to be done in Egypt.
Wow.
I flew back to Egypt for preparations, but then the second day I arrived to Egypt, I felt this insane pain in my stomach. I basically stayed the whole day in bed. I didn't know what was going on until I went to the hospital. They did a couple of checks and they said, you can't go home. You have to go in surgery in the morning. When they said that, I was like, I said, there is no way in hell I'm going to miss this. One thing I learned is damage control. Go with the flow, what happened.
If you're an introvert, the idea of going out of your comfort zone and meeting a group of people you've never met before, it sounds horrible, right?
One key tip that I would give is, and I'm sure this person is going to remember who you are when you leave, rather than if you go and say, hey, nice event, right? This is more awkward.
Yeah, I'd be interested to find out the reason behind you posting controversial stuff.
It's not really controversial. It's just the reality of things. I'm just going to say it how I say it. I specifically said it's time to call out recruiters who still mayhem in the comments. People were fighting, people were calling each other names. People are starting to realize that there should be a lot of focus on personal branding. But with that, there's a lot of people are now starting to share stuff on LinkedIn that are not necessarily correct. LinkedIn introduced this contribution things where you can contribute on articles. But when you look at the contributions they're adding, you can see that technically 90% of them are AI written. Now, for example, I stopped doing it because I'm like, everyone is doing it and everyone is sharing
anything.
and it doesn't mean anything. I have 2 badges from them.
2?
Great, yeah.
Oh, wow, I can't even get one.
I
didn't know that about you.
That's an exclusive for everybody.
Mahmoud,
Daisy.
tech recruiter and founder of Egypt Recruiting Community, so ERC. Let's talk about ERC first. So what were your goals with setting up ERC?
Yeah, so I started ERC because it's exactly what I would have wanted to have when I was still back home. When I moved to the Netherlands and I started to attend meetups of recruiters, here and there, a lot of companies were doing it. I started to see the benefit from it. I started to meet people that, you only know from LinkedIn or, people that I really look up to, and also to, get to see some other professionals, talk about the same exact field that I'm interested in. So when I started doing that and I said, hey, this is actually a great idea. And I would have loved to have that when I was still back home. So ERC started from just my passion towards talent acquisition and my passion towards wanting to give back to the community there. We do have amazing talents, specifically in the recruitment field. So I really wanted to create something for the community there to kind of come together, meet each other, learn from each other, exchange ideas, and just, have fun. So ERC literally started from LinkedIn. I just, went on LinkedIn and I said, hey, is anybody interested to attend such events? And is there anybody who can help me organize it? And in a week, we ended up having a sponsor. We ended up having a venue that wanted to host it. And then I started to invite people. The first event, we had it in April last year in 2023. We, I think, had about 400, no, not 400, I wish it was 400, 40 plus people.
Okay.
And then we had another event or another meetup that was in July, and that one was a bit bigger. We had, I think, over 70 people.
Wow.
And in the middle, we've had a lot of virtual meetings in the middle, and we also started basically creating the Slack workspace where everybody goes on and just kind of connect, ask questions, learn, share jobs, share CVs, and whatever. So ERC is it's my baby, and I'm very happy of where we at the moment with it. From the feedback as well that we've heard from everybody, it's something that people were waiting to have in Egypt, and I'm very happy to have started it.
It's amazing. And are people open in the Slack groups, for example, to share advice with each other? And
Absolutely. I think every day we get new questions. Every day we get new people joining. People ask about, salary surveys to, interview documents, to anything basically you can think of in recruitment or talent sourcing. I do think it could be more engaging. I do think that I still have a lot of work to do with getting people to be more engaged in the community. But so far, again, it being technically the first community of this kind back home, with the type of engagement we have at the moment, we're doing really good.
Absolutely. And you started this last
10 months
year,
ago.
10 months ago.
Yeah.
So you should give yourself some credit. It's 3 events already
Yeah.
that you've done.
Yeah.
And the most recent one was this month?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So just a week and a half ago, we have done history. We hosted the first ever talent acquisition conference to be done in Egypt.
Wow.
And that was an amazing feat to have.
How many people turned up?
So we had, I think, in total about 100 people were there.
Wow.
So that was great. We were expecting more, but of course some people couldn't come. That day also was a long weekend in Egypt, so some people preferred to be on the beach, which I completely understand.
Oh, wow.
But no, we ended up having about 100 people. So how the story started with the conference is back in June last year. Two recruiters from Siemens, they reached out to me and they said, hey, we are interested to host the next meetup at Siemens head office in Egypt. And I said, great, Siemens is a great company. I would love to do it. But then later on in the discussions, when I spoke to them, they said that they had in their venue, they had a capacity for maybe more than 120 people. And I said, well, that's too many people for a meetup. However, I have been dying to throw a talent acquisition conference in Egypt, specifically the first to be done. And I suggested the idea to them. They took it back to their management team. They came back and they said, hey, we have budget, we have approval, let's do it. And we started working on it for the past 7 months. We've been working on this. Me, both of them, and a couple more volunteers from ERC as well. And then, yeah, we've managed to secure all the speakers that we're on, the venue, the branding that came with it, and also the registrations that we've had from people.
Yeah.
And yeah, we ended up throwing the first ever TA conference in Egypt a week and a half ago.
It looked so professionally done. You had some great speakers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had Marcel Vandermeer was there, the legendary talent sourcer. Obviously, everybody knows who he is. We've had Michiel Viersma was also there. He was, it's funny because Michiel was actually my ex-manager. We used to work together. And
Oh.
I've told Michiel one time that one day will come where I will throw an event and I will present him as a speaker on stage. And it was such an amazing memory for me. It's something that I will forever hold. For me, when I was calling his name to come up, it was insane. So
Wow.
Michiel was there. We had Eva Kaiser as well was representing Germany. Siemens was representing Siemens from Germany, and we've had also a couple of more people from Egypt as well. Yasmin Dessou'i, Yasmin Sheikh, Omar Noor, and
Wow.
myself as well.
Yeah. And how did it feel? You've spoken on stage before, not for this long,
Yeah.
but how did it feel creating an event, hosting an event? It must have had the good bits, but also the really challenging bits, right?
Absolutely. No, so the good bits were great. I think through the feedback, we're still collecting feedback to this day, but until now, the feedback was great. People really enjoyed it. Again, it being the TA conference being the first of its kind back home, having international speakers as well, next to local speakers from Egypt, kind of having this mix and flavor of expertise was really nice. The networking was amazing. I think. And I say this, and I'm not sure if I can measure it accurately, but I am sure at least. So I'm sure every person made at least one friend on that day, or one new friend on that day, and that was basically the goal of ERCs, to get people to network together. So that was great, but obviously there were a lot of challenges that came with the conference as well. So apart from the day itself, I flew back to Egypt a week before the conference. And supposedly that week was supposed to be for preparations, me going to the venue to check everything with the team, make sure everything is working fine, but also for me to kind of finish the presentations, mine,
course.
and also collect the presentations from speakers, and also practice my own speech as well.
Yeah.
But then the second day I arrived to Egypt, I felt this insane pain in my stomach. And I didn't know what was going on until the next day. I basically stayed the whole day in bed. I didn't know what was going on until I went to the hospital to see what's going on. And they did a couple of checks and they said, you can't go home. You have to go in surgery in the morning. And when they said that, I was like, fuck. Can I curse on this?
Yes, of course.
Perfect. And I was like, fuck. Everything basically paused. I had a lot of preparations to do. I had the conference, and everything I can think of at that moment is I have a conference next week and I don't know what's going on and I have to go into surgery. I spoke a little bit with the doctors. I tried to kind of convince them not to do the surgery, but they convinced me that I had to do it. And I had to go into surgery, I think 5 days before the conference,
Oh
to
my
remove my
gosh.
appendicitis. And I did it. I was held in the hospital for 3 days. And
Oh,
while I'm in bed, I literally had my laptop and I was working on the conference. I was working on the presentations because I said there is no way that I'm going to miss this. And there's no way that I'm going to mess up this conference. 3 days later, I was finally cleared. I went home. And I think the day after, right away, I went to Siemens head office to check the venue and to
oh
see if everything
wow.
is still working fine. So that was a really big blow for me before the conference. It obviously cut down a lot of the time that I had to prepare.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, still everything worked out. I kind of powered through the pain and I went through the conference because I said there is no way in hell I'm going to miss this.
It just shows you resilience, doesn't it? And how strong the human mind is when you want to achieve something.
Absolutely.
Has it taught you any lessons? Because, sometimes you get crazy things happen, hurdles happening in your journey to throw you off and make you see things differently.
Yeah.
Do you think it's taught you something?
I think after the conference, one of the lessons I was talking to Michiel and some other people about as well is that one thing I learned is damage control. Is you really need to learn how to control whatever damage is going to happen on that day. On the day of the conference, we had a lot of stuff not going well. We've had IDs that were very late, so we couldn't start without having these IDs.
Okay.
And that kind of pushed us to start an hour and a half later, which obviously kind of fucked up the whole schedule. So that was one of the that was one of the things that we have had at the conference that didn't really work as planned. So we had to work through all of this. And I think the lesson learned after that is really to kind of damage control and maybe have plan Bs to literally everything. I did have plan Bs. I'm someone who really liked to plan for everything, but I realized that after the event, there was a lot of things that I actually did not have second plans for. So definitely
Okay.
damage control and to kind of, go with the flow, shit will happen, just take it, brush it off, and continue with the day.
Of course, and with an event like this, there's loads of pressure to make it flawless, make it perfect, because people are registering and attending something and hoping to take something away from it
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're allowed to say, but do you have any ambitious plans for the next conferences and meetups in Egypt in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a lot of ideas for ERC. ERC started off as just a meetup thing. So we threw meetups and that was mostly it. But then now seeing that people are really hooked to it and that they want to see more, now I'm trying to kind of expand with ERC and have more plans. So in the kind of ideas, we obviously with the meetups, that's the main thing we do, and we will keep this going. Hopefully maybe throw a meetup every quarter. And then in the middle, we also want to do something that we call the VCCs, which is the virtual coffee chats, where we kind of get people on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call and just very informal. Everybody can be sitting wherever they want, and we just have a topic that we can discuss very informally as if we are out at a bar. And then for the talent acquisition conference, we kind of did the one that we just did a week and a half ago as a pilot. But then we hopefully want to keep this going as an annual thing. So we want to do a talent acquisition conference every year, and we want to grow with it every year. So hopefully next year we can have more sponsors to it. Also, we want to have people to come in and exhibit maybe the products if it relates to talent acquisition and sourcing.
Yeah.
We hopefully want to do it somewhere bigger as well with maybe more people to attend and also hopefully to open more spots for international speakers to come as well. So that is also one thing that or one plan that we want to do with ERC. But then there's a lot of other things as well that we want to do. I am actually meeting with the team hopefully soon, and we can
Oh,
discuss more
wow.
opportunities that we can grow with ERC.
There's a team of you.
So it's a
now.
newly thing. So I spoke to some people from ERC, and they said that they really want to volunteer and work with me on the community. So yeah, I spoke to a couple of people, and now they're gonna jump on board and help me organize the events, but also kind of help me or help kind of project manage all of the ideas that we have. Because again, ERC is growing, and it is something that I'm doing on the side next to my job, next to my social life. But I definitely cannot do everything on my own. And now I have an amazing team that will work with me.
You made this sound so easy because I'm just reflecting with where I came from as well. And it would be great to do something like this for Sardinia, for example, where I'm from. And how many people have you had ask you or tell you like, oh, you've inspired me. I'm going to do it for my own home country as well. Must be a lot, right?
Yeah, definitely. Some people definitely reached out and they said that they want to do it in their home countries as well. They asked me for help, and I am definitely open to give them everything I've done so they can do it as well.
It's amazing. It also shows your character as well, that you're not hiding your secret recipes or your secrets. You're willing to help other people achieve this as well. It's definitely inspiring. It's something that I would want to look into for myself in the future as well. It sounds really ambitious though, the fact that you put yourself out there and you asked on LinkedIn, right? You said, hey, I've got this idea. And it could have backfired,
Yeah.
right? Completely. And you could have had 0 likes, 0 comments, nobody reach out to you. So with that, did you get a lot of traction to begin with, or was it quite small and you were just thinking, oh, I see potential in this?
Yeah. No, I think when we started it, we had a lot of interest from people, and it felt like, and they actually, some of them told me on the first meetup, they said that this is something we have been really wanting to do, or really wanting to have, but one, we never really did it. We just never really had the time or resources to do it, and two, we never really had someone who just wanted to do it. And I think when when I advertised the first meetup and wanted people to register, if I remember correctly, I think we sold out, sold out. It's usually for free, but I mean tickets. We were fully booked, I think, within a day for the first meetup. The second meetup, I think we fully booked within 2 days, and then the conference we fully booked in 5 hours. So people were really, really interested to attend, and people I think have been waiting to have something like this to happen, and that's why ERC is really, there's so much potential to grow with ERC, and now definitely we've had a lot of interest from the beginning.
Wow, you could do like a expo with like workshops and stuff. Could become really big.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's exciting. So you said it sold out within 5 hours, right? How do you measure that? Is it on a Meetup app or is it via LinkedIn events?
Yeah.
How do you?
So we had
that?
an event capacity for the conference, and it was I think it was at 130 people, and we usually throw our events on Eventbrite. It's a website for events. So when I say sold out or fully booked, is that we've had 130 registered people within the first 5 hours, and then the system kind of blocked people from registering anymore.
Okay.
And then we've had a wait list after it with, I think, 60 more people. And that wait list also sold out within the 2 hours after those 5 hours. So all in all, I think we've had near to 200 people, or a little bit over 200 people registering in the first 7 hours of the event. So that really showed that people were extremely interested and have been waiting to attend. And I think the reason why we've had more people registering in the conference quickly is that we have advertised that we are going to throw a conference earlier, or I think 2 months before we actually did, or 2 months before we hosted the conference.
Yeah.
But then with the meetups, we just kind of throw it out on LinkedIn and say, hey, we have a meetup. We are going to, or hey, we have a meetup. Here's the registration link, and then you can register. But then with the conference, we said that, hey, we are going to have a conference. Wait for the registrations. So we kind of had people waiting for it. And that's why when we published it online, people went crazy right away and they wanted to register.
So this is not your first time. You've also arranged events for your actual job, correct?
Yeah.
For the tech industry.
Yeah. No, so yes, so with my current company, I've helped with the team as well. We've helped organize kind of the first meetups that we've had here in Europe. We've had one in the Netherlands and one in Belgium, but it was more catered for the software engineering community, so more tech related. So I did have some experience in that area, but with ERC, I think it was my first time kind of organizing everything from scratch. So setting up the Eventbrite page, kind of looking at every person who registers, approving, declining, managing everything. So I think with ERC, it was kind of a fully fledged responsibility rather than with my job. It was a little bit less, a little bit less full on everything and more just working with a team and everyone having a kind of a responsibility. But that definitely gave me an idea of how events work and how can you organize a meetup, and also through the meetups that I have attended myself as well. I
Yes.
definitely got a lot of tips from there.
Yeah, you attend a lot, don't you? Compared
Yeah.
to, yeah, you attend so many, and they're all different, the ones you attend as well.
I do love events. I do love to be everywhere.
But it sounds like a full-time second job, ERC. So it's also the community, the Slack group, also the events. I'm curious for the feedback you've been receiving from this recent conference. Have you received any crazy ideas and suggestion from the other recruiters?
I think I've had a lot of ideas about content wise. So people wanted to learn something in specific. So we are working on that, or we are trying to get people who can deliver trainings or deliver sessions on the content that people want to hear about. So that is definitely going to happen. But then on the other side, I think a lot of people have been wanting to have more kind of activities, if I can say. So some people are really good at networking. So I'm very good at networking. I would go to an event and I would just speak to everybody. But then some people are not. And within the community back home, it being the first community ever to be done there, and basically for people to just come attend, and the whole purpose is to come and network with people. This doesn't really, or this didn't really exist back home before. So
Yeah.
the whole idea is new to people. So they've been asking to kind of have more networking activities in the meetup. So when they come, they can do like a game or something that would get them to network and connect with other people.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm trying to work on, and I'm trying to figure out ways for people to come and feel comfortable in networking with everybody. So that is still in the work.
You truly believe in networking, don't you?
Absolutely.
And going to events and speaking with others. ERC, you're preaching it to the Egyptian community. So, in your opinion, what's the importance of networking and going to events?
It's very important. It honestly, networking kind of, I can comfortably say networking changed my life. I've had amazing opportunities through networking. I've had a lot of doors open to me through networking, and I just met the most amazing people through networking. I think I met you through networking as well. So this really shows where you can go. I think if, again, people are great at what they do, you can be amazing at what you do. But if you're really just staying in the box that you're in, you're not really letting yourself out there, you're not letting people know who you are, you're not putting your face out there, and you're just not attending events, there's so much more there's a lot that you're missing out on. So again, from one point, attending events, obviously relevant events that are in your industry or relevant to your industry. One, you can know a lot about what's happening. You can get to know trends, stuff that are happening at the moment. You get to meet people who do the same job but have maybe a different way of thinking. And then two, you get to really meet people. I moved to the Netherlands because of networking. I spoke to then my ex-manager, or then my manager, and I spoke to him on LinkedIn, just using LinkedIn to kind of network with people, and I wanted to move abroad. And I spoke to him and he said, hey, I was actually classmates with your ex-manager, who was Michiel. And I was like, oh, wow, that's great. Well, let's have a chat. And we had a chat, and we ended up, clicking, and I ended up moving to the Netherlands just because of that. If I didn't went on LinkedIn and messaged this guy about a job, he wouldn't have told me that he was classmates with my manager. We wouldn't have had a chat, and I wouldn't have been here now. And that is just one example of so many other examples that I can mention that really changed. ERC as well, that was all through networking. ERC was just a small idea in my head, and I threw a post on LinkedIn, and 2 weeks later, we've had ERC going. So I do believe in the power of networking. I do believe in the power of just putting yourself out there, letting people know who you are, connecting with people, being proactive. I just spoke about this yesterday on LinkedIn. Again, being proactive opens so many doors, and you can be great at what you do. You can be very good, but there are so many other opportunities and so many other doors that are closed that will only open once you put yourself out there and start networking. So yeah, if you're listening to this, go ahead and network.
Were you always confident? Because networking, I mean, if you're an introvert, the idea of going out of your comfort zone and meeting a group of people you've never met before and do small talk, it sounds horrible, right? So were you always confident, or did you build it up as you were attending events?
I think growing up, I was very comfortable being out there. Since I was in seventh grade, I used to be in a hip hop dance crew. So I was,
Oh, I didn't know that
yeah,
about you.
that's an exclusive for everybody. So
Do you still do it
I
now?
No, no, not anymore. Maybe if I got a couple of drinks and I went to the club, so maybe.
Wow.
But no. So I'm very used to being on stage at a young age. So that really helped me just be very comfortable in myself and be comfortable in people having their eyes on me, or me being comfortable being in the spotlight, if I can say that. And then growing up, music as well really helped me a lot. I used to make music. I'm not sure if you know, but I used to record, and I used to also go to concerts back home. So that really helped me just become comfortable being on stage, and again, being comfortable talking to people. And then through my job, obviously, when you do recruitment, again, your whole job is to talk to people every day, and it really fuels me with energy. So if I go to an event, I don't mind going to talk to people. One key tip that I would give is to try to look up the people who will be attending the event. So try to have an understanding of who are the audience, maybe specific people that you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Look up their profiles, try to get to know them a little bit. And once you see them, it's not going to be small talk anymore, because you at least know a little bit about them. So approach them, mention something. So if I would see you at an event and I don't know who Daisy is, but I looked at your LinkedIn profile and I see that you're doing a podcast, I will come to you and I will mention the podcast. I'll talk to you and say, hey, I've seen
Yeah.
the podcast. It's great. I've seen, X person who was on the podcast and you guys discussed one, two, and three, and four. And then I would maybe start a conversation that way. This will make it a lot easier because, one, you're comfortable, you know the topic. It's not something that you are not familiar with,
Yeah.
and it's something that you started. So you kind of set the ground for the conversation. So this really eases up the small talk, or
Yeah.
actually eliminates the small talk and creates a more meaningful conversation. And I'm sure this person is going to remember who you are when you leave, rather than if you go and say, hey, nice event, right? This is more awkward.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say just try to know the audience first. Try to highlight some key people that you want to connect with. And once you go and once you see them, start a conversation right away, and everything will be smooth from then.
I've learned something new today. I'm definitely going to do that. I normally just go in blind and just speak with like the keynote speakers, for example. But that's such a good tip. And I relate to you so much because I was also growing up on a stage. That makes sense. When I was growing up, I was on a stage quite often as well. You just have this shameless confidence when you're younger. I was an actress for the school plays. I was Little Red Riding Hood once, etc. And you don't have that fear. So I think when you start young and you put yourself out there, I think a lot of people miss that opportunity, don't they, during
Absolutely.
school? So with networking, you've also been very active on LinkedIn, right? So you post a lot of advice for candidates, but also controversial topics sometimes. So I'd be interested to find out the reason behind you posting controversial stuff, and also the fact you use LinkedIn so often, the benefits as well of putting yourself out there on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so the controversial part is it's not really controversial, it's just the reality of things. And I think nowadays, because people are too afraid to share the reality of things, when they are shared, they're seen as controversial, but they're not really controversial. When I started to talk on LinkedIn and when I started to share my opinions on LinkedIn, I've had one goal, which is I'm not going to share bullshit. I'm going to share things as they are. I'm going to tell candidates how things work in the recruitment world or in the corporate world in general. And I'm not going to share advice that just look nice, but are far away from the reality. So if I go out there and I speak about, so for example, one of the series that I've done, which is It's Not You, but It's Not Me. And these are basically posts that I kind of talk about the myth about recruiters. So one of them was the candidates thinking that we don't look at their CVs, or we look at their CVs, but we never really look at them. We just kind of skim through them. And that is a myth. And I've kind of spoke about that and I wanted to explain how it works. So a lot of people would go on LinkedIn and they would say, yeah, we have a lot of applications, so that's why we don't do it. That is all bullshit. So I go into details and I say, okay, here is why we don't do it. And here is what we look for. And here's what happens. And here's what happens in a large organization where we have thousands of applications versus a smaller company with maybe 100 applications. So just being real with people. And I think that's something that is missing from LinkedIn is people who are real with whether they're job seekers, candidates, whatever your audience is on LinkedIn. My audience, for example, they're job seekers. I think that they deserve the truth, so they get the truth. Whether that truth is seen controversial or not, I honestly don't care. I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say it how I say it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to filter it, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just gonna put it as it is out there.
But most of the time you write great stuff that's actually really valuable and useful for someone who is looking for a job in this market. But I've seen in some of your comment sections that it gets a little bit heated.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I think about 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I've written this post on LinkedIn, and again, I know people are gonna go crazy right now when they hear this podcast, but it was about cold calling and how I really hate cold calling. So I wrote about cold calling when it comes to recruiters calling candidates at any time of the day, any day of the week, and they just call regarding a job.
Right.
And me being a candidate sometimes as well, sometimes recruiters call me as well for jobs. And why I was inspired to write this post is that I know that there are a lot of recruiters who call candidates at any time and they expect them to take the call at that time. And if they said, no, I'm not available right now, they would take that as a bad sign or as kind of like a red mark on the candidate, which I think is ridiculous. And so I wrote a post about cold calling and I said that it's not great. And I specifically said it's time to call out recruiters who still cold call candidates.
Ooh.
And I was talking about that if a candidate applies, you either put a question in the job application that they fill out with their availability, so you can call them then, or you can just send them an email and ask them for their availability, and then you can call them then. That's very easy, very fair, right? Obviously, there were a lot of people who were agreeing with me, and there were a lot of people who did not agree. And of course, most of the people who did not agree worked at consultancies and recruiting agencies. And I understand that the nature of the job is different from internal and external, but that is the opinion that I felt is right. Again, it's my own opinion. I could be wrong, but it's my opinion, and I will stand by it. So I put that post out there, and then I think in the next 2 or 3 hours after that, there were mayhem in the comments. People were fighting, people were calling each other names, and it got a little bit out of hand that I had to take the post down, which usually I would never want to take a post down because, it's my post. I'll do whatever I want with my LinkedIn. But it got a little bit out of hand, and people were really going at it that I just had to take the post down. So it can get a little bit crazy with LinkedIn. People are very opinionated there. People will say how they feel, which I love. But again, sometimes it needs to be in a respectful manner, of course, or it's still a professional website or a professional platform. But people do go crazy sometimes on LinkedIn, and that's why. And again, something that I really don't like is there's a lot of great content writers out there. There's a lot of people who have amazing ideas, but the moment they write a post and then they get people screaming at them and shouting at them in the comments, the minute this happens and they don't have the thick skin required to be on LinkedIn, they're just going to say, you know what, screw this, I don't want to do it, I'm not going to write anymore. And there's so many people who could have benefited from that person who would have wrote on LinkedIn, but they didn't because of how crazy people are on LinkedIn. So it is an amazing platform. It can benefit a lot of people. There are amazing content writers out there. There are people who write great stuff out there, but it could be also a very dark and a very scary platform for some people.
Yeah, especially if they're new to it as well. It would be very overwhelming. We'll go back to that in a second. I just wanted to agree with you with your post because you just have to respect that they are professionals. They are probably at work. Their work probably doesn't know that they're looking for something or applied for something. It's just not ideal. I actually sat next to a recruiter who had it was for a DevOps position within the company. And she had around 300 applications. And she was actually going through the list one by one and calling the candidates. And I remember she said like, oh, is this a good time? And then the response was the candidate. And she said, oh, it's 3 a.m. in India. Oh, can you still talk? And she did a full screening call with a candidate who was probably half asleep. So it's not even like optimal to catch someone off guard. No. Maybe controversial, but I think it's cutting corners, you know, and not respecting other people's time and just rushing your job if you're just calling people straight away. Or it could be enthusiasm. It might be that you're really excited to talk to the candidate. You haven't had many applications. You really need someone, and then the perfect person has applied. So you're just eager to get on the phone. But I fully agree with you with that statement. I've seen my fair share of weird stuff happening in even corporate recruitment as well. But talking about LinkedIn and people not being able to be themselves on the platform, because I've also been there where I've deleted a post because of trolls and people were going crazy at each other and at me for posting something. It tends to be that people get emotional once you trigger them, once you actually launch the post, once you're comfortable enough to speak up, then other people feel comfortable to talk. They don't normally come out with it themselves. But this puts off very intelligent, very knowledgeable people in the field actually talking about something interesting and educating other people in the platform. Whilst now, like you said, there's some fluffy content, there's some bullshit content from people who are not even relevant or in the industry as well. You've seen that as well, right? The rise of the fake posts, the fake advice.
No, absolutely. I think nowadays, again, everything being digital and with the flow of layoffs obviously that happened, and a lot of recruiters are now without a job, which is horrible to see. And the supply versus demand is crazy when it comes to recruiting jobs versus candidates. There is a lot of focus, or people are starting to realize that there should be a lot of focus on personal branding, and recruiters are really starting to realize that, okay, we really need to work on our personal branding. We need to be visible online. We need people to know who they are, so they could have a better shot at landing a job, or they could land a better shot at people, knowing them and giving them an opportunity for at least an interview. But with that coming along, there's a lot of people are now starting to share stuff on LinkedIn that are not necessarily correct. They're doing it just to get the followers, get the likes, get the comments, get the engagement. But when you look at the content itself, it's not really something that job seekers could take home and do something with it. Or we could take it home and do something with it, but it's not entirely the correct tip. And I've seen so many of those. I've seen CV tips that are so far away from reality, and I've seen interview tips that are so far away from reality. I've seen people are advising people to use AI to write cover letters or rewrite their CVs or whatever, which is great, but this needs to be done the right way. You can't just let AI write everything for you. You can't just let AI write your whole CV, because again, it could even write things that you haven't even done, or it could write things that you don't even know what they are, and then you will get asked about it in an interview. So it's that part where people just share a lot of tips that are not entirely correct. But then also, one thing that I started to realize as well is 2 months ago, I think, or 3 months ago, LinkedIn introduced this contribution things where you can contribute on articles and do it. And it was great. I myself did it.
The light bulb thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And you get badges from it, which is great. You can put it on your profile. I have 2 badges from them.
2?
Great. Yeah.
Oh wow, I can't even get one.
I spoke a lot about recruiting and interviewing when they let those contributions out. So it's great. However, nowadays you see a lot of people are now using those contributions or adding to those contributions. But when you look at the contributions they're adding, you can see that technically 90% of them are AI written.
Yeah.
So you basically get the question that is in the article. So like, what are tips for candidates who are looking for jobs? Whatever. I'm just giving an example. And then you can throw it on ChatGPT or you throw it on AI. You get an answer for it, and then you paste it, and then that's it. And then people just skimming through. You have some followers, they like it, and then dislikes gets your contributions high in value, and then you get a badge. So now everybody has badges. Everybody on LinkedIn has badges.
Yeah.
And now, for example, I stopped doing it because I'm like, everyone is doing it, and
It doesn't
everyone is
mean
sharing, and
anything.
it doesn't mean anything. Everyone is sharing wrong information, while the real ones, and like, forget even about me. There are amazing people on LinkedIn. There are some people that I follow who are amazing content creators and who truly share correct and valuable, very valuable information on those contributions, where now their contributions are not even visible because of other people's bullshit that
Yeah.
goes up. So again, LinkedIn is great, and it's forever will be one of my favorite platforms to use.
Yeah.
And it is a platform where people can connect, network, learn new things. But there is so much bullshit going on there that it really needs to be filtered out. LinkedIn needs to do something about it. When it comes to those contributions and the articles, they really need to look at maybe having specific people to write, not just letting
Not
it open to
everyone.
everybody,
Yeah.
or at least have everyone write it, but at least have like a specific area where the true content creators can go there and write. So the people, for example, who have the LinkedIn top voice badges, who are, this is an invite only thing by LinkedIn. So for
Yeah.
example, someone like TxC, he can goes up and he can talks about talent sourcing in a specific area where I cannot go and talk about talent sourcing because I'm not on the same level as Jan. So yeah, there is a lot of bullshit out there. I would love to see it more filtered out, but at the same time, I would love to see more people speaking up and being visible
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. So it's a very tough equation to balance.
Yeah.
So the one thing I would hope for is just people to really take this seriously and think about what they write, because a job seeker today who is dying to take any advice and work with it will probably see your advice, and if it's a wrong one, then a job seeker will be doing something wrong, and that's not really what we're looking for.
The contributions I see that are very highly rated are funny ones. They're not even
Yeah,
serious. It's just trolls being
absolutely.
ridiculous, and they get top rated, and then they get
And they get a badge.
a badge. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, like you said, if I'm a new member to LinkedIn or if I am genuinely seeking advice,
Yeah.
I think that would lead me to those profiles because I think they're legit. They've got a top voice badge.
True.
They're going to give me the correct information. And I think if you're not a native English speaker, for example, and you see that advice and they're being satirical or they're kidding, you might actually think that they're being honest, right?
Absolutely.
And there's so
Yeah.
many meme pages
Yeah.
for recruitment as well. It's funny once, I think, but
Yeah.
I think there's a time and a place for it. I come on LinkedIn to learn from others. That's the key thing. I like a laugh here and there, but from true stories, I
Yeah.
think, from experiences. That's how I get value and that's how I learn. But LinkedIn is, yeah, I hope that it redeems itself eventually. It is still my favorite platform. I've had to like detox from it. I don't know if you've had to, just because sometimes you're just seeing the same things over and over. Like people are starting to sound the same, not even because of AI, but because of clickbait material. It has to be really catchy at the beginning. The
Yeah.
story has to be so interesting from the get-go. You can't just have like a shit day or a normal day
Yeah.
and be appreciated for it, even if you've learnt something
Absolutely.
from that day. So I think that's really important to talk about. And are you going to keep doing the similar content, like the series that you're doing? Or are you going to divert more to more creative stuff like videos, for example?
I do have a lot of ideas. I do want to continue write on LinkedIn, not just because of the sake of writing. When I write a post and someone reaches out and they say, "Hey, this tip really helped me," this is exactly what I do it. Again, with the start of this podcast, I said I'm very passionate about giving back to the community. So everything I know or everything I've learned in my very little experience, I would love to share it with people. So I do still want to write on LinkedIn. I have ideas for new series. It mostly will be content, but I also do have ideas for music related content as well. Since I used to make
Oh.
music, I really want to go back to doing that as well. And I want to kind of incorporate LinkedIn with it as well. So maybe to, post about CV writing tips, but in a more creative way. So hopefully I can do that as well. But no, definitely we'll keep writing on LinkedIn. Definitely we'll keep sharing more tips, more advice, more controversial opinions on there, and hope that people will benefit from it.
What do you prefer seeing? Do you like written articles and long posts, or do you prefer more TikTok style videos or photos?
Me personally, of course, I do like the reels and the videos, but if I am on LinkedIn, I rarely check videos on LinkedIn actually, which is funny. But of course, if a video had like a really nice caption to it or the thumbnail was really interesting, then I would see it. But when it comes to a post, I do prefer not really long, but also not very short, kind of like in the middle, kind of organized well. I don't like to have like one sentence and then space, and then one sentence and then space. Then the post gets really long. So maybe kind of like blocked into 3 paragraphs or 3 blocks. And just a nice picture, kind of a picture that relates to it. Again, I do think people do read posts that have relatable pictures to it,
Yeah.
instead of just having text. So yeah, but again, my preference is different than others. I would imagine you would maybe have a different preference. I have a different preference, and someone else have a different preference. So it depends.
I get told that video is going to perform really well this year, but even from my usage of it, I prefer text. I prefer reading.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And you can easily spot an AI generated post compared to like a real authentic one. I just like to learn from people, and I think videos are too quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes, particularly the TikTok style videos, is just too fast. I'm not writing things down. I'm a bit disorganized, and I
Yeah.
don't absorb the information. It's kind of like you see it and you think that's really good, and then you forget about
Yeah.
it. Whilst the text, I think, impacts you. It's a bit like reading a blurb of a book.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I,
know.
I think it's a mind thing. I think it's a subconscious thing when you're, for example, on Instagram. You are expecting to see funny videos, you're expecting to see memes, jokes, whatever, and that's your whole expectations. If you are going on Instagram and you saw some text, you would probably not read it as much as you would watch a video. While on LinkedIn, I think your subconscious is different. On LinkedIn, you are
Yeah.
looking to see more professional content. You're looking to see, a post about recruitment or whatever. So you would be more engaged with content or text rather than seeing videos, because your mind just doesn't connect LinkedIn with videos, at least for
Yeah.
now. Maybe later that will change. But at least for me, when I'm on Instagram, I would be expecting to watch videos and reels and funny stuff and maybe stuff about shoes or whatever I'm watching around that time. But then when I'm on LinkedIn, I think it's the opposite. So
Yeah, like when you see the stories with the long text on Instagram, I skip.
Yeah.
It could be something really heartfelt. It could be something happening in the world
Yeah.
that shatters everything, and I'll just be like, next. I just want to see some dogs. Just want to see some noodles, some ramen, or something. LinkedIn is amazing though, because I'm seeing the people that attended ERC because I'm following it, but their posts are coming up on my feed, and it adds a different perspective because I'm so used to seeing UK style posts and
Yeah.
European. So I'm seeing this brand new content. I think you've created something amazing. The two worlds collided. It's so interesting what you can do with social media and,
Yeah.
and how it impacts other people, because you're giving other content creators visibility.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one thing that in my welcome note in the conference, I spoke to people about networking and the importance of it, and that ERC was an idea and it happened, and we were there at the conference because of networking. And I asked everybody to start doing so. And so I have had a couple of networking games with them on the day that we've done together. And that's why people met new friends. But also I asked them to start taking pictures and posting them on LinkedIn, because some of them are really good at LinkedIn. They use it every day. They post stuff and they tell people what they're doing in a good way, of course. But then some others are maybe a little bit afraid to post on LinkedIn. And again, it's not very common there. So I really urged people to, hey, take photos today. Take photos with random people that you don't even know and post them on LinkedIn. That could be your start of engaging with people, networking, having new people adding you on LinkedIn. And again, I think I was speaking to Michiel. He had like 200 connections from people on that day,
Really?
just because of just because of networking. And I'm sure those people who attended also had each other connecting with each other. I've had ton of people as well, and that's what happens. Someone posts, the other post, and then it explodes. And I remember the next day when I opened LinkedIn, I think I scrolled for like 5 minutes and everything was ERC. And I always
Wow.
said like, hey, team, we broke LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw it as well. And I think it's wonderful that you've done this from the beginning in Egypt. You've managed to create this wholesome, collaborative community. Do you feel like this too, that it's kind of broken, the recruitment community, particularly, I think even in Amsterdam, in the UK specifically, we're almost subconsciously seeing each other as competition, right? Like if someone posts something about CV, a CV workshop, for example, or they're going to do a live to just help people with their CVs, and then you think, shit, I should have done that first. If I do it, it looks like I'm copying them.
Yeah.
There's this like stigma around original content, but we're all in the same industry,
Absolutely.
right?
I think the end goal of me as a recruiter posting something on LinkedIn is hoping that candidates will see it, they will take the tips, they will start working with it, and they will get better. So if you, as Daisy, if you wrote a post today about CV writing, and I just wrote about it last week, and you wrote about it today, I shouldn't really take that as a bad thing, because you do have your audience. I do have my audience. They could be connected at somewhere in the middle, but you do have people that I don't have on my network. And if you posted, let's say, the exact same thing that I posted, I should be happy because some other people will see the tips. And what is the end goal? People will use it and people will be better. So if the end goal is the same, I don't really see it as competition. And I think no one should really see it as competition, because, again, LinkedIn, it's not a TV show.
No.
It's not a celebrity game. We're all just professionals using the same platform to share what we're good at. It's not a fight against who will have more followers. It's not a fight on who will notice me on the street. Again, this is not a celebrity game. We're not celebrities. We're just recruiters, and we're just using our platforms to share content with people. And that's it.
I agree. I see the LinkedIn world like this as well, where I just get inspired by people like you as well. And yeah, we will post the same things eventually, but it's good to reach different audiences.
Absolutely.
So, Mahmoud, if I lived in Egypt and I wanted to reach out to you about ERC, or I am a recruiter or a candidate, genuinely interested in getting some advice from you, how can I reach out to you?
So if you want to join ERC and you are a recruiter or a talent sourcer, or we do have some exceptions to general HR functions as well, you can either go to Egypt Recruiting Community page on LinkedIn, and then you will see the sign up link there to fill a form, or just send us a message, or just send me a message. And if you want to reach out to me in general for any advice or anything that you think I can help with, you can just give me a message on LinkedIn. I am very active on there, unless I'm on vacation or unless I'm sick. Other than that, even though if I'm sick, I'm probably going to be on LinkedIn. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and as soon as I can get back to you, I will definitely do so. So yeah, message me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Oh, hey, just one more thing. So have you seen that now people are writing on their taglines like "on holiday, we'll be back," especially the big content creators, because they get so many messages and requests.
No, I haven't seen actually. I mean, I would imagine people would do that if you have like a 200,000 followers or something, but I haven't seen one. I don't think I would ever do that, because I don't know if I want to tell people if I'm on vacation or not.
For security reasons. Or...
I mean, not just security reasons, but I do share a lot of my personal stuff on LinkedIn, but maybe if I'm on vacation, people don't really need to know that. And honestly, sometimes even if I'm on vacation, I still do open LinkedIn. I'm not obsessed, I promise, but I just...
Are you sure?
I like... I don't know. Probably need to be checked. But no, I do like to open LinkedIn, not even just to reply to messages, but just to see content, just to see if someone... it's always nice to see someone started a new job and good to congratulate them or something. So no, I don't see myself doing it unless I've had so many followers. But I do see other people doing it for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was, really interesting. I saw some small time creators with 30,000 followers and stuff doing it, but I guess they had clients and stuff that were reaching out to them. But no, it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and everything about ERC as well on this episode today.
Thank you for having me, Daisy. It was really nice.